many people hear the term influencer, the first person that jumps into their mind might be one of the Kardashians. But the truth is that today, anyone can create content, and many people are doing just that and making a living doing it.
There are so many different journeys that people take to get there. Some of these happen kind of by accident, when people share the things they love with the world and they wake up one day with an audience who just can't wait to hear more.
But this podcast isn't about how to get rich as a creator.
Instead, this podcast is all about getting started.
Cheers to getting started. Yeah, I mean, just to kick things off, we'd love to hear a little bit more about, what's your favorite place to eat in Boston?
Oh my gosh. My favorite place to eat is probably, I have so many, it's really like neighborhoods. But I love Chickadee. It's so excellent. Everything that they do, I feel like it's a different kind of thing that's happening anywhere else. They make fresh pasta, they're making fresh pita. Everything is just exceptional. And also they're like super involved in the community, which I like. But I mean, there's a ton of places I love. I love Parmesan, Pammy's in Cambridge. I mean, shut the heck up. Like Pammy's is just ridiculous. I mean, it really depends on the neighborhood.
That makes sense. And I guess maybe I don't know if this is a different answer, but if somebody had like, let's say like one meal in Boston, they were like flying in it had like 4 hours. Right. What would be the number one spot that you think that they should?
Oh my God, guys.
Starting with the top ones.
I have to say that like I would probably just kind of like send them even maybe to like James Hook or something.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the one meal, I feel like it's like you want them to be eating steamers and like, eating chowder and whatever. So I don't know. Like I like James Hook. I think it's cool over there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And sorry, last food related question, which is, if there is one place in the world, like sort of similar experience, you were flying in, you had like one meal, what would be the one place that you and
my God. Okay. So a place that I love, which is actually here, is Sal's in Provincetown, which is, I have never seen this in my whole life, but during the pandemic, I think it started during the pandemic, you're literally sitting in the sand, like the table is in the sand and the tide is like coming up. And like on your feet, like you're sitting in the water, like eating fresh pasta, like everything they do is just, but that would be the experience. And I would say if you guys haven't done that, I would like to get in their DMs right now and be like, we need a reservation ASAP. It's one of the best dining experiences I've had in my life anywhere in the world.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a great answer. Well, I think Jeeves, you're considering moving that direction, so you'll have to put
yeah.
The list.
Yeah, that's a good direction to go in. Put it on the P-Town list.
Awesome. Great. And then I guess last, just like kind of warm up question, is I feel like your brand is so like bright and playful. Do you have a favorite color? And what do you think it says about you?
Yeah, I mean, color in general, like I certainly, I would say I love red. I think that it's a strong color, a strong color that requires a little bit of attention. But the colors that I like, it changes. Like I've had this hot on my head pretty much the whole season. I'm really kind of loving these like nudes and pastels. I wore bright orange all last year. Like it really just depends on the mood. Color for me, it's more about like color for me. The clothing and color is the first way that we kind of show people who we are before we open our mouths. So I think I'm a pretty maximalist, happy, lots to say person. So lots of color.
I love that. Well, we've got to kind of a good transition into just a little bit more about your brand. Could you tell us a little bit more about how that got started?
So Project Paulie, we started out of a need. I've always kind of been in the restaurant industry and the service industry, and in whether it be marketing roles with spirits brands, or restaurants themselves. And as soon as the pandemic happened, I myself was working a liquor marketing job, traveling a ton, and it's like you could tell, oh my God, this is so scary. Like my job is gone. But then, oh wait, let's look around and see that there are so many people that aren't eligible for unemployment insurance, right? And these are like the backbone of restaurants. Whether it be like servers, cooks, our undocumented community, certainly. And every single thing that I was seeing being offered to restaurants was, hi, you can come and pick this up. Like you can come to this pantry and pick it up. And you went like, okay, well, I don't even want to leave my house. Why are we asking this of people? It's like you're asking people to put themselves at risk. And also a lot of the people that we're talking about, the communities we're speaking of, are people that were riding public transportation that didn't have vehicles. So immediately it was like my own stress about my job. It was like displaced and kind of we jumped into service mode. My idea originally, which was, in those beginning weeks in March, was that I was going to feed 20 families. And we made a video that was Paulie from Goodfellas slicing the garlic with a razor. I called it Project Paulie as a joke. And we ended up feeding about 2,500 families that first round. I just refused to quit. I didn't say no to anything. We were getting requests from all over the state, all over Rhode Island. And what we did was we had all of these restaurant managers, who were also scared, just like myself, and kind of wanted to do the same thing, throw themselves into service if we were able to. And so all of those owners and managers, they would basically come to my house every morning. They were picking up, like we would give them a sheet of all of the addresses, and they had all of the bags all taped up. They would know the color they were taking, and they would deliver them to people's doorsteps with enough food to last for a couple of days. And so that was the beginning. And as we went on, as someone who's really, I feel like, involved, it kind of always has been in my community, we were meeting people that were truly changing the world, and the trajectory of people's lives one meal at a time. And I was like, shit, man, how do I support them? Like, how do I get people to know about them? Like, how did I not? And I was using the tomato as a symbol on our bags throughout the whole beginning of the process. And I put the tomato on a beanie because I love a beanie. And, it really quickly spiraled. So that first year we sold 1,000 hats, and basically each different color beanie represents a different charitable organization, most of them local to Boston, dealing with food and housing insecurity. So really cool. I would say accidental, but I'm kind of good at this sort of shit. So it is, but it isn't. Everyone asks you why you have a tomato on your hat, and it's an opportunity to speak about the organization it represents. I think it totally completes the circle. For us, your work starts when you buy the hat. I think for most charitable donations in terms of like garments, it's like, here's the donation, you get a hat. That's not what it is for us. It's a really high quality item that people wear and that they're continuously talking about and hopefully working with the organization themselves.
You mentioned there how a lot of those conditions of early COVID-19, like that created so much of a need for Project Paulie. How have things changed over the last couple of years as the pandemic very much is still with us, but the dynamics, access have changed a lot. How's that affected Project Paulie?
I mean, we definitely exist because of the pandemic, and I know for myself, I've always done creative work, and I definitely wouldn't have taken the leap. So it's definitely been a benefit in terms of like what I'm supposed to be doing on this earth, which is like building community, and doing that through really interesting ways. I think that in terms of the organizations that I work with, like one of the things that I try to talk about a lot is kind of exactly what you had mentioned, that it's really not over, and that we're seeing so much residual shit from it, even in terms of like housing stuff, homelessness, like especially there. We work with a domestic violence organization pretty closely called Casa Mirna, that like they were overflowed. And like, there's no places for people to go. So one of the things that we try to talk about a lot, and there still is not, and people are working from home, and like a dangerous situation is now made more dangerous because it's less out there in the world. And really trying to get messages out that like, this is still exacerbated completely. And that like, if you're a landlord and you have space, that the state will come in and they'll pay for it and we can put people in your space. And it's really just having these conversations constantly because people don't know. People don't know because we don't see it, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So everything's bad. They need us.
Yeah, and I guess related to that, like you mentioned that the nonprofits that you support are focused on like food insecurity and housing. Can you talk a little bit more about that selection process? Is it a lot of like organizations coming to you, or how does that work?
Yeah. When we first started, it was definitely people that I knew that were kind of like community builders themselves, like asking them what organizations that they worked with. But you know, it's been all different ways. For us, we don't do anything medical. It really is about like, you know, we say we feed each other, and what that means is like it's not necessarily about food. Like feeding yourself is about like taking care of your mental health, making sure there's a roof over your head, taking care of our environment. So most of the organizations that we partner with truly do just that. So like our rights are a huge one. We work with Bagley. We work with Planned Parenthood. It's really just places that keep us alive. Yeah, and give us the quality of life that we should certainly be allotted as just a human being that's born. And it's kind of more of that conversation of like, holy shit, guys, like look at how much you're needed, and like we can all be involved with this. And like, there's no point if you have 2 sandwiches and someone doesn't have one, like we all got to have one, right?
Definitely.
And I think people genuinely, like the reason that people love Paulie so much, it is that I think that there's a natural desire as a human being that like wants to find ways to help.
Yeah.
You know, they just don't know how. So we try to do that.
Yeah.
Put their hand in another hand, you know?
In your work here, you have to wear a lot of hats, literally and figuratively, I guess. Of all the different types of work that you're doing as part of Project Paulie, is there any one that you find personally the most rewarding to engage with?
Oh, Christ. Yeah, I mean, I guess like when one of the things that we've been able to do since the pandemic has kind of softened up has been doing more work with the organizations themselves. So like most of Project Paulie has been writing checks, and it's like I'm able to have those conversations with the organizations. I'm able to have conversations every day with people in our shops or like you guys, but I've never been able to really completely thread the needle in terms of getting people in rooms with founders and things like that. So one of the things that's been able to happen this year is doing just that, like filling a room with people who give a shit and like giving them something to give a shit about. And that's been probably the coolest thing and the most rewarding. You know, these hats are a vessel for that. I think a cool one, and I love producing clothing and all of that, but the coolest thing for me is sitting in a room and putting people in a situation where they can feel the way that I feel when I meet founders or find new organizations and just be like, shit, I want to be involved with you. And so those situations, which we've been able to have a lot of recently, definitely the most rewarding.
That makes sense. Another thing that you mentioned was that this, you know, in some ways was accidental, but also not so accidental. Like clearly was born out of a need and born out of a moment, but it also seemed like you were prepared for that moment. I guess related to that, like, is there anything that you feel like people underestimate when it comes to launching a brand or doing something like this?
I think that I'm extremely fortunate because there's a mission with our brand. So I have something that's really cool and really smart and, you know, like it's thought out, but there's something bigger tied to it. Like it's just as fun. I mean, it's something bigger. Like I think that in terms of starting a business, starting a clothing business, being in retail in general, like I find that the stories and them being good ones are that's the shit, man. Like that's all there is. Like people are conscious, they're conscious of what's happening. They want to know, and the story doesn't have to be a charity story. But I don't know. It's like I don't know what advice I would give. I think that the advice that I would give would be to be true to yourself and what you're feeling as an artist, and what you want to make. Like put your all into that and surround yourself with good people that believe in you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I love that aspect kind of too of just like storytelling, and I also love how it seemed how influential that video was that your friend put together just to kind of kick things off. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of whether it's the role of social media or really just the role of storytelling when it comes to how you think about your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm someone who's not really that good at social media because I'm really good at like the real stuff, like having like a conversation. And I love the younger generation because they're like, no, this is the real stuff, and they're right. Like they're totally right. I'm like, shit, I have so many people that look at our Instagram and they don't get it fully, like I haven't thread the needle there. Mm-hmm. It's like, and it is so important, and it's so important in terms of your outreach. And like, one of the things that I'm starting to do is really like spend, this January and February when it's kind of slower, like on continuously educating myself, about that. And I guess the advice back to that, but the advice to someone that's starting a business, especially one with a lot of moving parts, would be to constantly be educating yourself, like constantly. And it is doing all of the things that you don't want to be doing. And even if you can hire someone to do them, you've got to know how to do them. And it's constant education. And I mean, I think that's fun. Like, I'm not good at all of it, but I think that it's fun.
One of the things that you also mentioned there, too, that kind of stuck out to me was that you kind of identify as an artist. I feel like there are a lot of labels that apply to you. It's like artist, brand owner.
Oh, girl.
Like,
yeah.
What is there one that like resonates like the most of those? Or
yeah, I mean, we've been saying a lot that I mean, I definitely think that I'm a community builder, certainly. I think that I'm a community builder. I think that we do that through our creative work. And to me, that totally is hand in hand, and it comes from the same place inside of me. So like, I've always done a massive amount of service. And I think that that's like how I breathe every day. Like even when I was doing liquor marketing, like right before the pandemic, I was traveling around, and it was with a women's, breast cancer fundraisers, and we were like building out for all of this stuff. To me, the creative work is best when there's service involved. And I think even like the reason that people have always kind of especially restaurant people have really like latched on to Paulie is because as restaurant people and as service industry people, like we kind of get lost in that. And it's so weird because it's like service can bring you out of that. These like depressing things that when you're like, oh my God, like what am I doing with my life? Or like living paycheck to paycheck, or like not having insurance issues, which are a lot of the organizations that we work with as well. I feel like service has been the key to that.
Yeah. And I guess really,
so I think I'm a service worker. I'm a service worker.
I like that. And I guess related to that theme of service, having worked in nonprofits before actually starting this, like I feel like for a lot of organizations, that aspect of like telling the story, or really that like marketing aspect, I feel like can be such a gap. So it seems like what you're doing is that really helping provide that service too to these organizations.
Yeah. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this. And I was like, I can't believe you're doing this. Like every day, those are the conversations. Like that's my job to tell people about you. It's my job, whether that be because they would need the services themselves, or like they have money that they want to donate and they want options to be able to do that. Like it is, I think it's all of our job as human beings, But yeah, they need us all. Here we are.
That's great. And I guess another question that I had for you was like, how do you feel like, some of your past experience, like marketing, like liquor brands, like how did that kind of prepare you for this experience of being a brand owner? Yeah, I'd love to hear a little more about
that. I think that creating like an overall like vibe, I think that that's something that never really gets considered, and it's a place that we certainly excel if you come into our shops or like especially our Seaport location. And there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up about that, but like really trusting your gut. And like for me, like you come into my store that it's like it's all stuff I love. Like the music is like the music matches with the stuff that we're selling, the story, everything. It's totally cohesive and connects. And I think that it's like through those spirits things and like seeing how people are doing things with big budgets or what you're able to do with big budgets, it's been like figuring out ways to making sure that like needle is fully threaded and that you're going to get a larger impact. And I think that again, like people that are in the service industry, like the restaurants we love the most, the music venues we love the most are the ones that you go into. Like you go into a Lolita, for example, because probably people have gone there, and you're like, shit, the music matches the walls, matches this, the vibe, the way the girl looks, all of that stuff. So I think like remembering or like being really conscious of the whole thing as a whole vibe, like it definitely helped me here.
Opening up your new shop in the North End, what's been something that you didn't see coming that was really challenging about like opening a physical location after getting started?
Yeah. So we opened the store on Newbury Street last year, and we were there for about 6 months, and now I've been in the Seaport for almost 6 months. And now the North End. So again, it's like everything is totally a different vibe. I would say, the things that I didn't anticipate was like, or that have been harder, is I really don't want to be anyone's boss. And I need to like, make the schedule and do all the stuff. I'm like, oh no, I just want to raise money and, I'll just do it all. And then you're like, wait a second, with a physical location, like you really can't. You have to staff it. And but no, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, we've had a great time. We've been really successful. It's been fun, but it's a lot of work, and it's from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, and it doesn't feel like work. I'm like telling my husband like, oh, but I'm I'm not working. He's like, you've been on your computer. And that's truly when you know that you're in the right place, I think, and doing the right thing when it just doesn't feel like that. I feel like I do nothing every day. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I did.
That's really cool. And yeah, such a great, like, I feel like just way to approach work. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess related to that piece around just sort of thinking about your physical store, how do you, and kind of threading the needle, like how do you sort of think about your physical store location, that presence in addition to your online presence, and sort of, how does that all come together?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is actually beginning to realize, again, like this January, everything's been a whirlwind for us. Like I went from making lasagna to selling thousands of hats to then having to have them produced and do that right, and I guess I had never really thought of the fact that your online store is another location, which is, it seems stupid to say out loud. But that's definitely been something that I've realized, that it's like, oh my God, like this is of the same value is this. And like, how do we do that? So again, it's like constantly figuring out how to do that. Cause for us, it's really easy to have that physical location. So it's how do we translate it? And I think for most people, especially now, it's like, they probably have the opposite thing where it's like, oh my God, I have this beautiful online store. And like, how do I do this? And And I think that it's important for all of those to match up, and it's a daily thing for anyone on either side, I think.
I have a nuts and boltsy question for people who are in your position. How are you going about developing that online presence? Are you working with developers? Are you getting in there and wrenching it yourself? What's that look like?
It looks like me, like, stressed out about it, trying to do it myself. We've hired a ton of people. I've hired a ton of people to do like marketing stuff with us. And the truth is that, again, like, for me, I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. We're in a really unique position where I'm good at doing that vibe. So it's been difficult to hire someone and have these expectations on them to, like, know what that is and what it feels like. So I think it's up to me to, like, create that. And then it's fair to find someone and be like, look, we're doing this. This is what it looks like, instead of just me being, like, bummed out constantly, like, why don't you get this? Yeah, like, it's hard. Help me, guys. Help me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I hear you on that, because I think that, one of the reasons why we started companies is because we've talked with, like, a lot of small business owners, and it is tough to kind of figure out how to, get somebody who can match your vibe, and just to make that really seamless.
Yeah. And also, we're just such a great company, like, for, like, the internet. Like, I sit there every day and I'm like, oh my God, I have 32, like, more ads. Like, why aren't they, like, TikToking? Yeah, and they are. I just don't even repost. I don't know how to do anything. But it's really just, like, finding people that you trust to do that sort of stuff. Like, I need to be able to do it, but also, like, it's just not where my passion lies. Like, all day long, it's like I get to talk to you great people, and, like, people that are running organizations, and, like, making sure that people get their orders and that the stores are staffed. But, like, it's really just, I gotta figure it out, guys. Help me. Find a TikToker. Find me a TikToker.
Sounds good.
You mentioned how so much of what you're doing doesn't feel like work. Like, you're at home, you're doing it because it's what you want to do. Are those the elements that start to, like, when you've got to dig into something that's that far out of your comfort zone, or dealing with the time?
Yeah. It definitely does. Like, and it feels shitty. That feels shitty. Like, it makes me feel like a failure, if I'm being really honest. Like, it sucks because all of this stuff does come really natural to me. So most of the time, like, or not really this, because it's like, I love it so much. But that's the bummer part of it, is that I've realized, like, the importance of it, and it's just, there's only so much day, and there's so much to do, that, like, the physical work kind of ends up in front of that. And if I'm making a choice of what to do, it's going to be to, like, I don't know, plan an event for Elevate Youth to be able to do something great with us and, like, get their name out there. So it's like, while I totally realize that I'm not doing a good enough job, if I'm not mirroring that with my online presence, I haven't been able to figure it out yet. Help me, God, help me. You have a retail thing with help.
When I've been in those kinds of modes where it doesn't feel like the work is the work, and it starts to really, like, take over in a wonderful way, that can also kind of, over a long term, be a recipe for burning out. You really are giving something your all. Is that something that you think about and, like, manage for yourself? How you think about?
Yeah, it definitely is. And we're figuring it out now. Like, we're lucky enough. When we built this space, we have, like, a whole stock room and shipping room and things like that. So, we got some nice new computers, and what I'm trying to do is not do work when I'm at home.
Sounds so simple, and then it isn't.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not. But, like, the thing that's been great is just, like, forgetting my laptop here, like, deliberately, because I really can't get anything done on my phone, really. So yeah, I mean, I think that I certainly do feel like something that's been great for me, like, when we first went into what we call the current in the seaport, one of the things that I did, knowing that it was going to be 7 days a week that we were going to be open. At that time, it was supposed to just be 3 months, but I was like, I'm going into my athletic season. Like, this is what this is. And so I completely stopped drinking because I was like, athletes stop drinking like when they're in season. So that's been kind of a cool way to like make sure that I'm like taking downtime and like being with my family and like doing that whole thing and like being focused, because the business truly does feel like it needs me and it needs my attention. And you know, the hope is that I'll feel really comfortable in a year or two that like I will be taking that downtime and like I'll be on the yacht office just being like, shit, man, look at all the good we're doing and this luxury. So like really the yacht office seems good, but no, I don't have downtime. I don't take it. I don't want it right now. This is downtime. This is downtime for hanging out.
I love that analogy of kind of viewing something just like as an approach to entrepreneurship is like your athletic season. And I've also sometimes heard it called like it's both a marathon and a sprint. And so
it's really about having no regrets. Any section, like I don't want to be like in the box and be like, I wish I did more for people. Like I wish like when I've had these ideas, like throughout my whole life, I've had great ideas. I've been able to like do amazing creative work. But I think it's like, do we ever truly give it our all? And this was an opportunity for me to truly be present, you know, whether it be like the pandemic and us being home or like not drinking and being really conscious of how I'm spending my time and who I'm spending it with. Because like, guess what? Life is stressful. It's fun to go out and have like a 12-hour dinner a night. You know, for me, that's fun. And so it was like, okay, well, what if we don't do that anymore? Then like the people I'm with is more deliberate and whatever. And it's just really about having no regrets. I didn't want to be like hungover and be like, oh shit, like I can't meet this person or like my mascara is down the eyes. So yeah, I think it does deserve your all, whatever that means for you. And for me, having a family, it's spending the time with them that I have that's extra. Or like, if I'm going to sit here with you guys, like it's because I think you're really fucking cool and not on accident because we're shit-faced at a bar.
I love
that too, though. That's the advice that I would give to anyone starting a fucking business.
It's great advice. I love it.
Take it serious.
Absolutely. I mean, one other question that I had is like something that I really liked in terms of, I don't know what you would call it, like a slogan or some sort of tagline that I saw on your website was this expression like we feed each other. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that means to you?
Yeah, it's kind of about responsibility. Like it is our responsibility to feed each other, to sit at the table together and not look at people with an empty table next to you. You know, I kind of talked about it earlier, like feeding each other for us. It's not just about food. That's kind of like the jump off point. You know, we're in a mental health crisis. We're in a housing crisis. Like it doesn't matter if you have food, if you have no home, if you have no sense of community. And it's also doing what we can do to take the stigma out of need. Like there's been, and I think that definitely happened like through the pandemic a little bit, where there was people that had needs that never thought that they would. Like we're not talking about a traditional homeless trajectory, and I don't think that that's what we're talking about, the people that need services now. So you know, it's definitely realizing that feeding each other is not just about food. And yeah, it's making sure that we're doing everything that we can and that you're a fucking asshole if you're not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like with Paulie, people are like, oh my God, you're amazing. Which like, obviously everything that I do is kind of extreme. So like, I get it. But in the same sense, like this entire thing is a stunt. It's a stunt to sit there and have people go like, this girl just cooked a lasagna or whatever, or just decided to talk about this organization. I can do the same thing. You know, like I'm not a politician. Like I don't have a platform. I didn't have any money. I like lost my job. and also realizing that that's kind of the way that we're gonna find our meaning. And I think that goes for every person on this planet. Is going to be through feeling like you're doing good.
Feeding each other. I love that. I feel like it dovetails nicely too with what we were talking about before, where it's like also finding things that can like feed and nourish yourself, like whatever that means, whether it's meaning work and like, or just, be aware of how you spend your time. I like that.
Yeah. And that we can kind of choose it, and that whatever, it just happens when it's right. And I was a person that used to sit there and I was like, shit, like why don't I feel this click? And I did this great thing and whatever. And it was truly through service that happened. And definitely for like my daughter, like having a young daughter, it was like, what example do I want to set for this child? And like what am I in every aspect of my life, right? And like, I want her young life to be like having service and helping people be so natural that she doesn't even realize it's happening, right? And that's the people that we need to raise, and the leaders that we need to raise. And it, a lot of it has been Frances certainly doing that for her.
That's awesome. And I think maybe related to that, like, I'm curious, like, what are your hopes and dreams for the next, like, 10 years? Like, I mean, I feel like you started to talk a little bit about it in terms of inspiring others to do things. And I feel like you are such a great example of that, but would love to hear a little bit more about, your hopes and dreams.
Yeah. My hopes and dreams, like we kind of always say that like at Paulie, we're like the beginning, like those little like trickle of a wave. But like, my hope is really that like it goes so far beyond what we could even imagine, like in terms of the work that other people do with it. There's definitely like more stunts up our sleeve in terms of community building and raising funds. But I constantly kind of say, like, I want everyone to knock me off and like literally, like, I don't care if you make a hat and put a friggin' banana on it. But I don't. It's never really been about that. It's been like all of us working together on the same goals, and those goals being to make our communities a better place and to also feel a part of it and woven into it in a time where people like don't talk to their neighbors and like aren't really a part of their community. So I think that this is a way to kind of find that. But yeah, lots more stores and fun stuff. And I love the Seaport, so something new in the Seaport.
Yeah, excited to hear more about that. And I guess one thing too, like when you think about kind of creating that ripple effect, are you considering like expanding to outside of like the Boston area? Like it feels like the local aspect was such a great way, like for how you got your start. But how are you sort of thinking about that type of expansion too?
Well, so now, probably 2/3 of our organizations are national ones. Obviously, I focus a lot on Boston because I'm here. Yeah, I interact with people here. And also, like, there's a huge vetting process in terms of the organizations that we partner with. And, obviously me being able to be around it is going to, but definitely more growth. We just partnered with Duke's Mayonnaise, which is so funny and fun.
That's awesome.
And it's like an enormous partnership, and like my mind is blown. But we partner with Duke's Mayonnaise, so we're actually going to be working one of our newest organizations called Southern Smoke, which takes care of a lot of like medical expenses, emergency funds for restaurant workers, but really focused on mental health within the restaurant community, and they give out millions and millions of dollars a year. Which is really cool. So they're a national organization. They're based out of Texas, but lots more of that. And I don't have any reason to like go. We're kind of like staying in the US because like we live here and there's like shit going on here, like whatever. But hopefully there's a tomato on everybody's head soon. We'll see.
That's awesome. And can you talk more? I don't know if we asked you about this specifically, but the significance of the tomato. Like, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, no, it was not, it was, I was making red sauce every day at 5 o'clock in the morning. My husband would start the red sauce at 5, and then I would wake up at 5:45 and continue that process. I can't believe he still likes me. I'm like, Bill, 20 lasagnas, and it's like 2,000 later. But yeah, I mean, we were always kind of like, I drew this tomato, and it was just this wacky thing, like, and everyone asks you about it, and it doesn't make sense, but somehow it does. And the more time passes, the more wonderful things I find out that make it seem like it was meant to be. Like, tomatoes can literally like grow out of cement, like there are so many different types of tomatoes. Also, I don't eat physical tomatoes, which is like really funny because obviously people constantly are like, take a bite of this tomato, and I'm like, no, only in soft form. But yeah, it was just kind of like this funny thing, and also just something that is the basis for like community building in my own family, which is like my family's red sauce recipe that like truly says like home, family to me. And the whole premise of Paulie, and I think still the feeling, is that you're coming into my home and I'm feeding you the exact thing that I feed my daughter and my family. And that's always been the way that we've treated it. So tomato.
Are there folks who are doing things similar to Project Paulie that have really inspired you, or people that you've learned from who are going down a similar path?
I don't think anyone's stupid enough to do what we've done. Not stupid enough, but everything we do is so intense. I mean, all of our hats are like, they're a kind of a funny thing. They're embroidered with wool, because that's the way that we started with like chain stitching and whatever. So they're all done with wool. We have our own program. It's like this whole intense thing. So every producer is like, go F yourself, because like wool like snaps and breaks. Everything about it is intense. But I think that one of the companies that I always looked at, which is so random, when we first began, when I kind of like made our first hat, was like Black Dog. Yeah, where like nobody has ever, like no one even knows it's a restaurant, but it's kind of like this like elitist bullshit that it was like, I know what the vineyard is, like, look at me. And I kind of always looked at that and was like, fuck, like that's a powerful, like just this Black Dog. Like, I wonder if we can use that power for good. And so I've kind of always looked at like what they did and what they do, and like also the shit's like really nice. It's like really good quality. Anyways, no, I don't know if anyone's giving away 20% of things for no reason whatsoever, because like I'm not a charity. Like no one does this. Start a business, like I would like people to.
I love that.
Maybe it's happening. I don't know. Like if you can think of a business that's giving away 20% of their profits, because they love their neighborhood, then I would love to be inspired by them.
That's such a cool, the Black Dog thing is, I love that kind of Black Dog. Yeah, that's such an interesting, but like, yeah, it is. I never thought, but like,
yeah, and it's totally what Paulie is, and especially like we certainly, I don't really go that many places, but like when I'm in the Seaport and you kind of like see people walking around that are definitely like really successful young people, and constantly the thing that I hear is that people are meeting because of these, they're having these conversations about them, and it's truly just this whacked out symbol of this secret. It's like, oh my God, you have this too, or like, oh my God, what is that? And now I know this really cool thing, and like really realizing the power of all of that. And I think it's really cool. I don't know, but Black Dog. And we stayed at a place in P-Town. The first time I went to South, it was when we first started Paulie. It's like 3 years ago. And my friend had rented a house, and he said, do you want to stay in this house? And it was like 4 couples, and it was right above the Black Dog store in P-Town. And I was like, huh? Shut up. I'm like about to get like a cease and desist black dog after you there then. They're like, you insulted us, you not about. I'm just kidding.
No, it's brilliant. Yeah, I never thought of that. Thank you for
yeah, started of this. I'm telling you, the banana hat.
Yeah, there's something there.
There is.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I guess just kind of wrapping things up. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? Anything you want to plug or
yeah? Let's see. Oh, I probably should have mentioned this. So, one of the things, like, in order to not change our hat colors, but be able to activate in other states, for people, I think I invented this. I was told I invented it, but I don't know. We're doing these pins. I'm going to show you that has the state. It's like an infinity pin.
Oh, cool.
I think that one is this one, Massachusetts. Yeah. So all of these are going to be available for all the states, and the money directly activates a soup kitchen, in that state. Those will be our next launch. So these are really cool. So these can go on the foaming methods, which are so sick, but they'll clip on to these guys and clip on to these and all of our stuff, and really be an additional way for people to give back. Again, like something really that I just think is cool that I haven't seen, but always with like a really obscene, stupid give back. Because like, fuck huge companies that don't.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? Like, why are you doing that, idiot? Like,
that's awesome. So when's the drop? Do you have a date?
I don't have a date. It's like by May 1st. We're building. I hope that by the time this comes out, like, it will be happening. But we just got approved to build bocce courts in the seaport and have like a clubhouse there. So the bocce courts will be like raising money, and then we'll have our cool merch and like everything, like neon light.
Awesome.
Really cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
So excited. And it was funny because I was putting together my boards for like the vibe of it, and it came up, like, asked me to put it in this board, and it turned out in 2016 I had made this bocce board for God only knows what. I'm like, wow, this is actually what I'm meant to do. Fucking bocce. But yeah, so I think like next for us will be bocce in the seaport, and like we've been so excited by our relationship with the seaport also, because you would think that it was like cold. I think before being down there, it's like, oh, it's like cold, it's dark, whatever. On the sneak, it's like this beautiful new community of young people who genuinely want to be involved. And the people that are creating that community, in terms of us, have been like, this is awesome. Like, what do you want to do here? Like, how can we assist you? And I think that most of the areas in Boston are like pretty gate kept. Yeah. I was like, they're not really like, no one's ever like even the magazines, like I've never been on a gift list. But yeah, so thank you guys for like talking to me.
Of course. No, thank you. I feel like I've learned so much. So fun to get to know you and your brand a little bit better.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.